I'm Lauren Quinn, as she mentioned, and I started the Central Illinois chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America here in town. And Moms Demand Action is actually the largest nonpartisan grassroots organization that's working to prevent gun violence across the country and in our communities. Our local group is relatively new, but we're active and growing, and we're always looking to expand our membership and really amplify our voices to demand action from our leaders to put a stop to gun violence that makes all of us fear for our lives when we go to school or to a movie or to church or just walking down the street. That shouldn't be the case. So please join us if this is something that you're interested in and passionate about. You certainly do not need to be a mom or even a woman. You can join no matter what. And we have sign-up sheets over there at the welcome table also as you came in. So if you are interested in getting more information about the organization, just sign up there. We also have a monthly member meeting, which will happen next Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month, 6:30 at the Unitarian Church in Urbana. But I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about our speaker today. So it was last summer when I saw a news clip about a group of women, moms, who decided to stand up to gun violence in Englewood, in the Englewood neighborhood in Chicago. The group, founded by Tamar, called itself Mothers Against Senseless Killings, or M.A.S.K. And they were literally stationing themselves on street corners in one of the most dangerous parts of the city to deter people from committing crimes. And it worked. And what I really love about Tamar and M.A.S.K. is just the fact that she's an ordinary person, and she just got fed up with the toll that gun violence was taking on her community. And then she did something about it. And she is just an absolute inspiration to me and to a lot of people. And it is my total honor to introduce her today. And so please join me in welcoming Tamar.
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, Kasey. Where'd Kasey go? Thank you, Kasey. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for the invite. A couple things first. I have a really bad toothache, so I have some stuff going on here. So if I'm speaking a little lispy or kind of weird, that's what it's about. So just bear with me. And I'm probably not going to be able to speak for 45 minutes because my teeth feel like they're trying to tunnel their way out of my head. So. With that being said, my name is Tamar Manasseh, and I am the president of an organization called M.A.S.K, Mothers Against Senseless Killings. And just like Moms Demand Action, you don't have to be a mom or even a woman to be involved. Actually, we also have M.A.S.K, Men Against Senseless Killings, because there are more men in the organization than there are mothers. So I really love that part. But I started M.A.S.K about 2 years ago, and it has been a really interesting journey. It took me a lifetime to get to the beginning of M.A.S.K. It wasn't just something that happened one day or one event. It took a while for me to get there. A man named Reverend Martin Niemöller once wrote, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." I didn't used to care about gun violence. Well, I mean, kind of I did, but like not so much. I cared about it the way that I cared about the environment. Not that it wasn't important, but I never feared stepping outside my front door and dropping dead from like poor air quality or anything. I cared about it as much as I cared about fracking, the wells, saving the bees. I knew that they were all important. They just weren't all that important to me. But in hindsight, okay, wait, I've since changed my position on all of that, okay. But in hindsight, gun violence is the one thing that I didn't care about, that I should have cared about more than anything else in the world. Seeing that I came from Englewood, born and raised. Englewood is the place in Chicago. It's one of those neighborhoods where if you absolutely have to be stabbed, shot, or robbed, that's where you go. And it was, and it still is one of the roughest neighborhoods in Chicago and in America. And that's where I came from But that's where I refused to raise my children there. So as soon as I got the chance, I took them and I escaped and we were gone. I moved on up to the east side, or which I found out later, I moved over. That's all it was. It was perfect though. And even though I can still get back to Inglewood in just about a 10-minute drive, it might as well have been a million miles away. Their problems were no longer my problems. I didn't have to worry about gangs or violence because I lived in Hyde Park, where my biggest problem was finding a parking space at the neighborhood European supermarket on a Friday evening where I went to shop for Shabbos dinner baguettes. It was always a fight over the fresh baguettes, but that's another story. Yep, it was the life. My children went to Jewish day school. They had play dates and sleepovers with their friends. I did yoga and not that Bikram crap. I did the hot yoga that everybody said was the coolest thing. I didn't like either, but that's okay. I waited in the soccer mom line with the minivans and the SUVs, even though neither one of my kids played soccer. Even when I tried to convince my son that soccer was football, he wasn't buying it, still didn't want to play. I sipped my protein shake from a Lululemon cup. I listened to NPR like everybody else. And I didn't look like what I'd been through or where I came from. Not at all. I didn't want people in that line to know how poor I was growing up, or even then, or how many times as a kid I'd seen dead bodies on my way to school in the morning, or how many gangbangers I was related to. I didn't want them to see that I had all the same scars that everyone else from the other side of the park or the tracks, wherever it may be, that they had. I wanted my black children to be looked at like the rest of the children in their all-white Jewish day school. So I had to be looked at the same way all of the rest of the parents were. I never wanted my children to see the things that I did or cry for the same reasons that I cried, or to be forced to accept the same realities. I not only wanted them out of Inglewood, I wanted the Inglewood out of them. I was a foolish, foolish, foolish girl, I was. And time taught me that that would never happen. As my kids got older, I was gradually forced to accept some ugly, hard truths. As we made preparation for my daughter's bat mitzvah, which occurred in 2008, I'm really old, a young black girl by the name of Khadidra Marsh, about the same age of my daughter, was murdered in Lawndale. Lawndale is on the west side of Chicago. As we picked out the material for her dress and her talit, I remember thinking of this girl for a second. My daughter getting all dressed up for such a joyous occasion, and the other girl being dressed for her burial. I quickly put it out of my head. Nothing would mar that joyous time for me. Besides, my daughter was black, but she was a good Jewish girl, and we didn't live on the west side, so I had nothing to worry about. In 2012, it was my son's turn to be a bar mitzvah. He wore my uncle's talit, but once again, we had to spend time at the tailor. His suit had to fit perfectly. This would be the day of 1,000 photos and the most important day of his life thus far, and he had to be the flyest. But of course, once again, I was hunted by those same thoughts. I thought of Dantrell Brown and Jawan Ross, who were about my son's age and had been gunned down while simply trying to get something to eat. I couldn't imagine that these boys or my son had lived long enough to earn such a death. I don't think if one lived 1,000 years, they would do so much where they could. But once again, I thought of those suits, and I had to put it out of my mind. My son was black, yes, but he was a good Jewish boy. And we may have lived on the south side, but we didn't live in Inglewood anymore. And those kind of occurrences are the reason we moved away in the first place, right? We lived in Hyde Park, a couple blocks away from where the president's home was, the land of tiny dogs and jogging strollers. We were completely safe there, right? Yeah, we were. We were. Even when a young man that went to my daughter's school was killed up the block from our house. He was a male. And while it was a shame, that's what happened to them, right? Wrong place, wrong time. We were safe. We were. We really, really were. Until my daughter became a junior in high school, and Hadia Pendleton, an acquaintance of hers, became the latest victim of gun violence. My concern became full-blown terror when I saw a heartbroken mother on television crying for her child, and I recognized her. For the first time, I saw myself in that position. and even worse, my children, and I couldn't bear it. It had come for the children on the west side. It had come for the children in Inglewood. It had even come for the children in my neighborhood, but I would absolutely be damned if I was gonna let it come for my good Jewish kids. I knew I had to get active and I had to do something. My faith taught me activism, and in order to save my children, I realized that I had to work to save everyone else's too, regardless of race, religion, or gender. So I began to formulate ways of saving my children and our children, and I tried a lot of stuff. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. But through it all, I knew that giving up was never an option. The lives of my children were dependent on it. But during the process, I learned a whole bunch. One night, while standing in a crowd huddled around the steering wheel with a bullet hole in his head, I learned. I saw moms look just like me. Not much older than me, not much younger. And they were shaking their heads and wringing their hands and making comments like, well, at least I got my son's insurance paid up. Or, you know, if it happens to him, that's what he gets. I'm tired of telling him to sit down. Or, girl, now I'm gonna have to stay in the house because they're gonna do this all night. So passively. I was floored and I was so overwhelmed, and I had heard too much. For the first time in my life, I heard mothers completely emotionally divorce themselves from their children and resign themselves to waiting for the day when it was their child in that car. I heard mothers give up on mothering. And if that happens, how do children keep on being children? I heard a hopelessness and a helplessness in the voice of all those people. I also realized that they lived inside of a bubble, and they knew that their cries, their words, or their stories would never penetrate it. It was Inglewood. Just as they were trapped and isolated in that neighborhood, so was their issues. And I mean, of course, me being a mom and very familiar with the works of the great Dr. Seuss, just as Horton wouldn't have been able to live with himself if everyone hadn't heard the Who's, neither could I. I started to think harder and work harder. There had to be a way. I had to make a spectacle. I had to do something big. And turns out a lawn chair on the corner in a war zone would just about do the trick. Once again, I was wrong though. I went in under the impression that I was surrounded by gang-banging, drug-dealing hostels. I believed the hype. So I was ready to take them on. After minutes, I realized I was dealing with unemployed, unskilled high school dropouts and ex-offenders who were clueless of the fact that they had options and they could get their lives back on track. How do you fear someone who's asking, can you help me get a job? Or can you help me get back in school? Or can you feed me? I'm hungry. How do you fear them? I was excited because it seemed like these things they asked were simple enough, and if this is what it took to fix it, it could be fixed. And I can definitely assist them, right? Because the mayor had jobs. The alderman had jobs. There were private companies who offered jobs to underprivileged kids, right? Wrong. Nobody had jobs for those kids. Or anything else for that matter. Not the ones who were so close to helping fill up all those beds in those privatized prisons downstate. Not for those who had made enemies of police officers who wanted so badly to see them locked away or in a bag. Not for the ones who fate and our society had cruelly conspired against to ensure they never escaped the prison of the bubble or of the state. These people, our children, should only be marched against or demonstrated against. But how do we do that? How do you march against your own kids? They weren't warlords or corrupt government officials or some heinous injustice. These were our children, the people that we gave birth to, our flesh and blood. I felt like a complete failure until I looked around and discerned exactly where the blame should have been placed. It belonged to the ones we elected to do everything but fail us. We elected people to pass laws that would create jobs, keep schools open, pass comprehensive gun laws, and we keep our children safe physically and mentally. That's so not what we got. Perhaps our lawmakers, much like I once was. They don't care about gun violence or poverty because it does not affect them. And how do you really care about racism when you benefit from it? There's no money to keep schools open or give people clean water, but our defense budget is greater than the next 8 countries combined. I'm so confused. Gangs and street violence are not the problem of our lawmakers, but once a senator or governor's kid, son or daughter, is gunned down in a classroom or at the mall or at the movies, I declare Al-Qaeda or ISIS will not be the problem, like they scare so many of us into believing they are. That kid down the street who suffered from severe mental illness, who never got treatment, but was allowed to circumvent background checks because he bought his gun on the internet, that'll be the problem. We down here in the bubble, though, on the block, are not rich enough to fear terrorists. We fear each other. ISIS and Al-Qaeda didn't kill nearly 500 people in my city alone last year. Good old American violence did that. I don't see how people who claim to love the Bible so much allow their Second Amendment right of the Constitution to precede the Sixth Commandment of God, the Sixth Commandment of God, thou shalt not kill. I caution each of them, each of us, if we can't find the motivation to pass common sense gun laws, to find a way to make things better, we can't find that in the love that we feel for all of our children, the same way it eventually came for Reverend Niemöller, and the way that it came for me, it's absolutely coming for them and for each of us. We can't afford that. Over the 4th of July weekend last year, there were no shootings in Inglewood at all, not one. Everywhere else in the city, there was shooting, there was everything. And a lot of people have tried to say that it was because M.A.S.K was there and it was because of what we did, but I just like to believe that people want something different. And if they are inspired to do something different, they will. That's what I believe it was. During the summer, completely unfunded, we served over 5,000 meals. 5,000 in 66 days. Every day we made dinner for the people in the neighborhood. Every day. We became a part of the neighborhood. That corner was their living room. It was the kitchen. It was the bedroom. They lived there. It was an outdoor community center. It was a safety that they didn't get anywhere else. Not at home, not on the streets, not anywhere in the city. They got it on that corner. They got it because we were there. And we had no more than they had. We just had love, and we weren't afraid to give it. So sometimes that may be all that you have. And if that's all that you have, then that's what you must give. Because in Judaism, there's a principle called tikkun olam, and it's repairing the earth. And it is everybody's job to do something to help repair the cracks that exist in this earth. To do something, to be something to someone. Everybody has something that they can give and something that they can be, and everyone is important. So I'll wrap this up by saying thank you for having me. I hope I wasn't too long-winded. And I'm opening up for questions.
You mentioned the lack of funding for schools, but I wonder if you have any anecdotes or any detail about the disruption that the turnaround school charterization, closing of all the schools, which just didn't start under Rahm, it started under Arne Duncan. I just wonder if you know.
And it's been a downward spiral ever since.
But it disrupted neighborhoods in horrible ways.
And it's gotten a lot of kids killed. Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of that. And actually, this year we'll be pretty much organizing in the community to keep a school from being closed down in one area of Inglewood, because the kids would have to be sent to another school, and it's rival gangs, and it's a lot of different gang territories they would have to pass through, and the kids in the two schools are different gangs, and we can't have that happen. And until we can eradicate gangs, we can't keep putting these kids in the same places together.
So, have you had any kind of interaction or feedback from any officials of the city or any officials in the police department?
I don't think they like me that much. I'm not their favorite person. I don't know why. I'm always so nice. But the thing is, I think in theory, M.A.S.K is community policing on like steroids. Like it's how community policing should work. Over the summer, there were no instances of violence whatsoever, ever, never. In 2 months of the summer, I never had to call the police for anything at all. And the people around that immediate area pretty much learned to police themselves. They would break up fights, they would stop skirmishes before they became a problem. They did that themselves. And I think that kind of bothered the police. And another thing about M.A.S.K is, and community policing, theoretically speaking, it's a really great thing until you actually start to really do it. And the police are cool with community policing until that means that the community polices the police. That's where the problems come in. So it was those instances where the police felt, where they couldn't necessarily do the things that they would normally do because we were always watching. The same way we were watching the quote unquote, undesirables in the neighborhood, we were watching them as well. And that's kind of where our problems were. So, no, I'm not their favorite. I'm hoping I'm gonna send them flowers and candy and give them some hugs. That's all I got for them.
Yeah, thank you for coming down here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm his better half.
I love her.
Yeah, I do too. One, in an interesting talk that Dr. King gave to the American Psychological Association in 1967, he quoted Victor, and he was trying to deal with the issue of the urban rebellions in the 1960s. And he quoted Victor Hugo to the effect that in the darkness a man may commit a sin, but the one who is evil is the one who created the darkness. And to me, that's about what public policy is. There's public policy who created Inglewood. Mm-hmm. And now there's a new set of public policy, the transformation of public housing, what's happening with the schools. These public policies are undoing the former stage of public policy. This is the creation of the darkness. And so that when you deal with these issues, as you're doing with this, the police, the mayor, the government, the people who make the policy are the ones who create the darkness. And so there's not going to be much love coming your way because you're shining a light.
What? Oh, shucks.
There's going to be a lot of light in the darkness. That's my one point. The second point is this. You spoke in my wife's class via conference call. And you told a story, which I have been telling everyone who will listen.
About my Pooh Bear?
No, about something else that I wish you would talk about. You said you were out on the street, and this kid, this teenager, had a cell phone, a smartphone, and you saw your face on the phone.
That was my Pooh Bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you realized that from the angle, you were trying to figure out where this was coming from, and that this kid with a cell phone had hacked the Chicago blue light system.
Yeah, and he thought everybody could do it.
That kind of ingenuity in the hood
Yeah.
is what's coming our way,
Yeah.
as well as all the other stuff. And I think it's important to not only talk about, the stuff, that the violence, but the kind of work that you're doing, but what these kids are doing on their own.
That story is something else right there. Okay, I got to tell the story right quick. So one day, it's this kid, he's my Pooh Bear, but that's not what his street name is. It's something a whole lot tougher than Pooh Bear. But that's what I call him. So one day we're sitting down in the lawn chairs, and I see myself on his phone, and I'm like, wait, what's happening right now? Like, he's not holding the phone up. How am I seeing myself on your phone? I mean, there was in my head because I was so confused. And I said, what are you doing? Is that like some app or something? What is happening right now? And he said, no, it's that camera right there. And I'm like, wait, the blue light camera? And he's like, yeah. I said, wait, you how did you do that? What you mean? Everybody can do it. No, everybody cannot hack into the CPD blue light cameras and do that. Everybody can't do that. And the fact that he didn't know that everybody couldn't no value on a talent like that. None at all. It didn't mean anything to him because it's average, because everybody can do it. And I'm like, can you? I mean, like, what else can you guys do? There was a show about people like, it was called MacGyver. So yeah, that's pretty much the story. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you very much for all your work. I do some research. I'm really interested. You off the cuff said that you served 66,000 meals, as if
5,000.
5,000 over 66 days, as if that kind of spontaneously happened. But I'm sure there was a lot of.
It really wasn't.
Well, could you a little bit of detail? I mean, I don't think. How did you get the food? Where did people? Who participated, et cetera, et cetera?
Let me tell you how this went every day. Let me tell you how this went every day. Well, I got up in the morning. I called the bank. I checked my bank account. I said, okay, I got $150. I'm gonna go buy 12 packs of hot dogs and 6 cases of hamburgers, and I'm gonna get some buns, and I'm gonna put it all in my car. And I literally had a kitchen on wheels. To this day right now, there is still charcoal in the back of my car. I have an SUV, and you can't even let the back row up because there are lawn chairs, there are condiments, there's chips, there anything. I mean, like, I'm really prepared for like a blizzard, or if I get caught in an avalanche or something, I will not starve. Every day I went grocery shopping, every single day. Every day I went to the grocery store, and we got this, we got that. There was a 90-year-old woman on the block who allowed us to use her freezer and her house as like a staging point. And she would call me, 90 years old, and she would say, you know what? We got 25 packs of hot dogs. We having hot dogs today. Don't go buy nothing. Because it was an effort. It became an effort with everybody just on the block. And it was just so random that and sometimes people would just drive up and, here, I bought a case of chicken. And one day we lost the case of chicken. Remember that day? We had so many cases of chicken that I think someone absconded with one. I don't know. I don't know what happened to it. But people would just start dropping stuff off. Because what this did was, it gave people who wouldn't normally have a way to help, those people who look at the news and they might live on the north side, or they might live in neighborhoods that aren't like Inglewood, that aren't like Lawndale, or aren't like Roseland. And it's like, you just don't want to come from a neighborhood like Lincoln Park or something like that down to the south side and like, hey, I came to help. What? This gave people a way to help. Even if it was just dropping off a case of water, that was good with us. People would bring meals. It was someone, actually a mother from a Facebook group, I think called Mama Tribe, organized something on Take Them a Meal. And people signed up for a few weeks every day to bring food. Every day they would bring food. They would bring stuff for sandwiches, or one day somebody sent like 40 pizzas. It was just always people from out of state would sign up and order stuff and have it delivered to the corner. So it was interesting because, so funny, because the kids would start saying, every time they would see a white person drive by, they would say, Tamar, somebody is looking for you. And I'm like, no, I don't know all the white people. I don't know them all. But I mean, like 9 times out of 10. But that's how it went. It was so many people that wanted to give, they just didn't know how, and this created a way for them to do it. So every day, it was a dragging a grill out. I mean, I actually almost got into a altercation with one of my volunteers because it was like 11 o'clock, and I was like, we're just gonna throw the rest in the garbage. Sleep, I'm done, don't call me, don't text me, I'm not coming out. But no, that didn't last long. So after Labor Day, how many days was it before I was back out there? 3? 4? Because we had to do tail because it was day, it just kind of went on. And then we had the prom. It was so many never got to go. Either they missed out and nobody sagging jeans or white t-shirts. I was crying. It was so nice. It was beautiful. But prom, very active, still out on blocks. Even it was 14 degrees and we were sitting out on a corner. That's what we do. So what we've actually started using the winter months for is recruiting. Is how do we stay on top of this? So when we come back in the spring, we have an army. So now it's not just one corner. We have enough people that we can do 6 corners. We've been doing membership. So we've expanded to 4 other neighborhoods other than Inglewood, because this is a thing. It's not just a So we're in all kind of neighborhoods now. So we're building way for Christmas than any other organization in Inglewood. And remember, we ain't got no money, and we did this. We gave away food. We had a community dinner. We still stay good with all of the people. We still do. So we still meet regularly. We're putting things together. We're still doing stuff. To having one, but I kind of like the whole nomadic kind of floating around. You can come and bother me when I don't want to be bothered kind of deal. Yeah. So that's where we're at. Oh. No one's ever asked me this many questions. I am so happy. I didn't drive all the way down here for nothing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Moore. I actually graduated from Lynn Bloom Math and Science Academy in West Inglewood. And a lot of the times what we did, well, what they required us to do is kind of get out in the community and, do whatever needed to happen or be done. I was wondering in what ways could, I don't know, Lynn Bloom help, or any of the other high schools, Harper, Inglewood, not Inglewood, Ingleside.
Inglewood and Robeson.
Can help out in Robeson. What ways?
There are a lot of ways, because we actually try to do peer support groups, because so many kids have similar stories. And the thing is, kids don't communicate as much as they should. So sometimes, we ask kids to reach out. Like we just hosted an event for MLK Day, and we invited teens to come together. We're forming a youth congress. And we ask kids to try to bring kids together from everywhere. So maybe kids who do go to school every day. You have some kids who are 15 and 16 who dropped out already. And if we can get them to come, and we can get the kids who do go to school every day, that is a really great dialogue to have. And those are really good bridges to build. So that's really what we're trying to do, get some, peer mentoring kind of thing going. So yeah, that would be wonderful. That's what we try to do.
Hello, my name is Amber McKinley. I'm also from Chicago. I guess my question is, although M.A.S.K has had a lot of success, we know that there still is a lot of violence in Chicago, and specifically in Inglewood. What do you think are other ways that can stop the violence other than M.A.S.K and community organizing? What do you think are ways that can help to stop, I guess, even with this year, with the 200 people being shot, what do you think are just other ways to help stop that?
I think at the root of everything is personal responsibility, and community is at the root of everything. And M.A.S.K is now, we have maybe 45, 50 members, really stalwart members. We need the entire community to step up and be a part of it. If not even M.A.S.K, some M.A.S.K-like organization, or just something where you actually get up and you get involved in what's going on in the community. But there has to be changes in policy, and there has to be changes in the way things are done on, a government level. Things have to be done differently, because it's not much that people can do. It's that same darkness that that Lou spoke about. It's the same darkness. And it's kind of like our kids don't know what to do with that. And it just gets darker and darker and darker, and they adjust to that, and that's never a good thing. So that's what it's going to take. It's going to take some changes on, you know, we're going to have to start voting and doing some stuff. That's what's going to have to happen. And I mean, like, I cannot stress community involvement enough. It's not going to, I mean, if everybody has a gun, it's going to take more than 10 people to stop shooting. It's as simple as that.
Please join me in thanking Tamar for coming out today.